Hey everyone, welcome to Yoga Land's Yoga Teacher Companion. I'm your host, Jason Crandell. And in this episode, we're gonna focus on some of my favorite strengtheners for handstand and forearm balance. We're gonna focus much more completely on strengthening the shoulders, but there is an anterior core strengthener that I really like to incorporate under this condition. The other thing that I wanna call out real quickly is anything that we do to facilitate strength and mobility in the upper body and in the midsection is a really good thing to do, including just Surya Namaskar, down dog, chaturanga, locust, plank. All these things are really good. But there's a handful of poses that I like to incorporate when I'm really trying to help someone adapt to the strength and the postural demands of these particular poses. And the first place we're gonna start, everybody, is strengthening the external rotators of the upper arm. Because the external rotators are one of your first lines of defense against the elbows splaying, especially in forearm balance. So when those elbows splay in forearm balance, we don't just need the flexibility that decreases that splaying, we need the strength that offsets it. And one of the first things that comes up is strengthening the external rotators. And there's a bunch of really good little opportunities to do it. I'm gonna show you where it all begins. So what I like to do, everyone, and a lot of times I will teach this right before someone goes up into forearm balance, right? I might teach this early on in the sequence in the preparations, and then I might teach it again right before we get up and we do our first forearm balance or Pincha Mayurasana. And what we do from here, everybody, is we start with the forearms down, almost like you were gonna do a conventional forearm balance, but you go palms up. And then from here, you raise the back of the arms. And it doesn't matter how much you raise it, either from like 1 degree or 45 degrees, but you get the back of the arms off the floor and the palms are facing the ceiling. Now from here, everybody, you have two options. Option one is you make fists and you pretend you're holding a resistance band between the hands, right? So you kind of want to imagine there's a little bit of imaginary resistance. Imaginary. Anyways, so you have some imaginary resistance in those hands. And then from here, keeping the elbows where they are, you just slightly pull the forearms away from each other, okay? I'm going to turn my angle so you can see that a little bit better. So I've got palms face up. I lift the back of the arms up a little bit. I make fists. I pretend I'm holding a resistance band between my hands. And then from here, I just pull those forearms away from each other. And this, everybody, if you do this for 15 to 30 seconds, this is a lot of activation of the external rotators. So especially teres minor and infraspinatus. They're having to work quite a bit. So that's option one. Option two is if you actually have a resistance band, like a TheraBand or a TheraLoop. These are really, really nice. Not everyone has them in their public classes or at home, so I don't want to make this dependent on that. But if you have a real band to put between the hands like this, then you have even more dynamic resistance to work with, and you can really build some good stabilizing strength for those external rotators. So it would look like this, everybody. I'd be on all fours. I take forearms down, I go palms face up, raise the hands a little bit, and then if you have a loop, you don't need to hold on. You can just have that loop catch around the webbing. Or if you have not a loop, but a band, you can hold on. And then against real resistance, you can pull out. And you can pull those forearms away from each other. And I'm telling you right now, everyone, this is an immediate and very significant demand, okay? So this is the first place I like to do it, but if I want to really focus on strengthening this external rotation, once I set it up here, then I'm also going to incorporate it through the flow. So for example, a lot of times we're doing within the flow, we're doing Anjaneyasana or we're doing standing poses or crescent lunges, but you can always come down into something like this. Take the elbows, pinch them in against the side ribs, palms face up, make fists as if you're holding an imaginary resistance band, and against that resistance, pull out. And again, what this is doing, if you watch, if you can see, is by strengthening the external rotators. It's not like you're gonna do forearm balance with the arm like that, but by strengthening the external rotators, you are training stability so that when that palm is down later, it's less likely to go into that abducted and externally rotated position. So to keep those shoulders in the good place, don't just think about flexibility. Think about the strength that holds that position. And this can be done and it's super, super effective, okay? So another thing that I like to do, everyone, this is a little bit more common, but there's a couple of details that are easily lost. So dolphin, but I'm gonna do dolphin a couple of different ways, okay? So there's really two ways, well, there's more than two ways, but I want you to think about two distinct ways of doing dolphin, okay? One, where you have a little bit more of the striding that you would in downward facing dog. So in this version of dolphin, everybody, I am not bringing my shoulders forward and stepping in. Instead, my elbows are forward of my shoulders. So this is a little bit more of an opener. So when the elbows are a little further forward on the floor, right? When the elbows are forward of the shoulders on your mat in dolphin, it's going to be a little bit more of an opener for the shoulders in flexion, okay? So I like to do that just to create a little bit more mobility, but when I'm really trying to focus a little bit more on strength, I want more of that vertically stacked weight, meaning I want to bring those shoulders forward over the elbows, but I also want to bring the hips more vertically oriented over the shoulders. So watch this detail. So we're in a little bit more of a, we'll call it a longer strided dolphin, which is great for opening. But then what I want to do is I want to bring the shoulders forward over the wrists. Not over the wrists, excuse me. Shoulders forward over the elbows. I park them here. And then from here, I step the feet in, right? I relax my neck. But a lot of times people stay here. What I like to do from here is I actually come up onto the tiptoes. So I am getting as vertically stacked as I can. And as I do this, I want to relax the neck. I want to press the forearms down and relax the neck. So I'm getting my weight, everybody. I'm pitching my weight more vertically oriented over my elbows. Think about this one more time. The more your pelvis is behind the shoulders, the more it's a nice opener. So the longer the stride in down dog and the more your hips are back, it's a little bit nicer for increasing range of motion, increasing a little bit more flexibility. The more you step in, lift up onto the toes and get the pelvis and the shoulders upright, the more you're going to be strengthening the deltoids quite a bit. Now, I will do that early on in a sequence just to start to prep the shoulders to say, hey, we're going to work on this. But I'm also going to do this pretty frequently, everyone, right before we go up into forearm balance. So the two things that we've looked at together so far already go really well, especially right before forearm balance or handstand. And I'm focusing verbally a little bit more on setting you up for forearm balance, but I think these work really equally for forearm balance and handstand. I actually think it's harder to create requisite strength for forearm balance than I do handstand. So if you're doing what you need to do for forearm balance, it's the same thing for handstand, okay? Now from here, there's a couple of variations that I like to do, okay? So I also like to do a one-legged down dog from the same position. So one-legged dolphin from the same position. So I'm gonna start in this slightly longer stride. I'm gonna take a breath or two here. Then I'm gonna bring the shoulders forward. I'm gonna step the feet in. I'm gonna hoist the hips up while relaxing the neck. I'm gonna come more to the tiptoes so I'm vertical, and then I'm gonna raise a leg, okay? And as you do this, everybody, now the majority of your body weight is vertically placed over the shoulders, okay? I also want to tell you, this is not a super fun thing to do, right? Like, this is all of the hard work of forearm balance. It's all of the hard work of preparing for handstand without the levity, without the lightness, without kind of that satisfaction. But I think this is what we just have to kind of settle into, which is these preparation help us with that lightness and that levity that's going to come. Now, there's another thing that's pretty common, everybody, which is a dolphin push-up. And we work this more from plank. So we work this more from forearm plank. So what I'm going to do in forearm plank is, and you're going to notice, everyone, pretty much everything we've done so far, all of the dolphin variations, the palms are not on the ground. The fingers are interlaced. So the two hands are joined together and the outer wrist is pressing down. This just gives us such a strong shoulder frame when those two hands are coming together and the outer wrists are pressing down. You can really feel the strength of those two sides joined together, okay? So now this is gonna be the same thing for a dolphin push-up. So we're gonna be in forearm plank, but from forearm plank, we're gonna have the fingers interlaced, okay? And then from here, you're gonna bring the chest forward so the chest comes towards the thumbs. And then from there, you press back to forearm plank. So I'm in forearm plank again, and then I kind of come forward to the tiptoes. I bring the chest towards the thumbs. I don't need to bring my chest to the thumbs. I just take it towards. And then from there, I push the floor away to forearm plank, okay? This is a really nice way to build greater strength in the front top portion of the shoulders. Okay, this is another one of those poses that it's much more work than it is short-term pleasure. So what we have to do, everyone, is this is where I'll put this, is I'll usually kind of dip this into Surya Namaskar. I usually don't have one phase where I'm doing all of this stuff because it's pretty heavy-handed and the body can fatigue out really quickly with it. So I like to distribute this stuff throughout the flow. Then the core strengthener that I like to do for this, everyone, honestly, is forearm plank with the natural curve of the spine, okay? Any anterior core strengthener you do is gonna be helpful for this pose. But I think that we can get a little crazy, a little obsessed about the lower spine being straight. Yes, we want to de-accentuate the increased lumbar curve. But that doesn't mean we want to go away from neutral. So what I like to do here, everyone, is forearm plank, fingers interlaced, and then I'm not tucking my tailbone and rounding my back so much that my lower back is flat. I'm engaging my anterior core, but I actually want the natural curve of the spine. So I'm allowing my lower back to be in its natural curve while I'm cinching up through my belly and in through the waistline. This is going to give us a much more realistic sensory blueprint for forearm balance, because if in forearm balance you want the lower back to be perfectly straight, A, it's probably not going to happen, and B, it's not necessary nor is it functionally desirable. So decreasing excess curvature of the lower back, sure. Making there no curvature in the lower back, I think we've gone too far. Now, watch how all of this puts together. I'm going to show you how every one of these poses go together. So this is the extra bonus for those of you that have watched the whole video, okay? This is a little mini flow where all this stuff comes together and you can incorporate this in your Surya Namaskar. Remember, I teach you so many times you don't just have to do conventional Surya Namaskar. So watch. We'll see how all this stuff comes together. So let's say I'm in down dog and I come forward to plank. I come all the way down to the floor and I come into Sphinx. I inhale in Sphinx and then look, I exhale, I come into forearm plank, and then in forearm plank, I turn the palms up, raise the back of the hands off the floor and pull apart. So now I'm doing that external rotator strengthener, right? Really strong. I keep my lower back in its natural curve, so I'm doing the core strengthener I want. Then I interlace the fingers, press the outer wrist down, step in, and I'm in that nice long down dog, or that long dolphin, that's more like down dog. Then watch, from here, I come forward to forearm plank. I bring the shoulders and the chest forward towards the thumbs. I press back to forearm plank. I can do that a time or two again. Or now I can step in. I can do that really short dolphin. I can come up onto my tiptoes. I can raise a leg. Then look, I can step all the way back through it. Forearm plank. Palms up. Raise the hands, pull the hands apart. Palms down, lower down, inhale, Sphinx. Exhale, downward facing dog, right? So this is the kind of thinking I'm always trying to help contemporary teachers develop, whether you're in a foundational developmental phase or a really seasoned practitioner teacher phase. Thinking about this, everyone, this would be such a good fluid preparation that you could do not just in a class a time or two, but for weeks or for months. You could normalize this work. If your students normalize this kind of flow, their ability to have the raw materials, that strength and that control for handstand and forearm balance is going to go up astronomically, okay? So keep practicing, pass this on to anyone that you think will get value from it. Subscribe to my newsletter. I have a bunch of trainings coming up, and I think you'll learn a ton, anyone. But anyway, thanks a ton for being here. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.